All right, it's time to bring in Senator Ted Cruz of Texas and Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. And Senators, wow, okay. Make America great again, baby. I'll tell you what, if I can hear Lindsey...
The love is everywhere.
If I can hear Lindsey Graham say, make America great again yesterday with a smile on his face, anything is possible.
The world is upside down.
I want to apologize to Ted for saying he should be killed on the Senate floor.
Yes.
At least we're not on the Senate floor now. We're in Russell instead.
Ted Cruz, you are a pop culture specialist. What would Bill Murray's character in Ghostbusters be saying at the sight of you two together?
Well, I think we've crossed the streams, and I think the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man is coming out anytime soon.
Dogs and cats living together. Let me ask you guys really quickly. I'll start with you, Lindsey, because Ted, you introduced Rex Tillerson. Were you concerned, Lindsey, about Rex Tillerson's non-answers to Marco Rubio's line of questioning?
Yes, I thought Marco did a really good job. Mr. Tillerson's a very accomplished guy, but when it comes to Russia, I want more clarity. I think war crimes were committed under Putin's control and regime, and we'll see if he can clean up his answers, but it's not about his qualifications as much as it is about how he views Russia, and we'll see what happens.
And Ted, let me ask you about that. You introduced Rex Tillerson. First of all, tell us why you did, what you know about the guy, and then the same question to you. Were you concerned about his non-answers to Marco Rubio's questions on Russia?
Well, listen, the purpose of the hearing is to flesh out a nominee's views, a nominee's experience and vision. I introduced Rex Tillerson, number one, because he's a Texan. He's an incredible business leader from my home state. And I think this is a really challenging time. I think the foreign policy world is a mess after 8 years of Barack Obama, and we need a serious leader. And if there's one thing Rex Tillerson is, he is a serious man with experience running a massive global company, negotiating all over the world, and I hope and believe that he is going to be able to help change us from the direction. I mean, right now, our friends don't trust us and our enemies don't fear us. We've got to change that, and I hope and believe we're going to.
I'm wondering then why, Lindsey Graham, then, why would it be so hard to say I'm concerned war crimes were committed?
Well, I think, number one, you don't want to go into the job naming one of the leaders of the world a war criminal, but here's the problem. You got to deal with Russia as it is, and the bottom line is I think his nomination is salvageable from my point of view. I think he probably is not going to get a lot of Democratic support for some of the other answers he gave. He said Russia did it. That made me feel good about hacking into our elections. He understands the utility of sanctions. He was reluctant to make a commitment about what he would actually do. I get that to a point, but he should have knocked it out of the park. He should have turned to Marco and everybody on the committee and said, I see what they did in Aleppo. I know what they did in Aleppo. It is wrong, and it is time for Russia to pay a price across the board, not just for hacking into our election, but for destabilizing the world. But at the end of the day, Trump's the guy, not Tillerson. I think Tillerson's a very qualified guy, but I'd like to see more strength and clarity when it comes to Russia and the moral clarity that Marco was talking about.
Senator Cruz, why will there not then be a second day of hearings so we can flesh out even more, hear more from Mr. Tillerson?
Well, listen, that's the decision for the chairman and for the committee. I know I was visiting with a number of members of the committee on the Senate floor last night, and I think their sense was that they had answered the questions. They had gone a lot of rounds, and they felt like their questions were answered, and now the committee has a chance to evaluate what they've heard. They can follow up, as they often do, with more questions in writing, and then they're going to make their decisions, and then the whole body, the Senate, will make our decision.
So, Senator Cruz, it's Willie Geist. Do you agree with Senator Graham and Senator Rubio yesterday that Vladimir Putin is, in fact, a war criminal?
Look, I've said many, many times that I think Putin is a KGB thug, that his pattern for his entire time in office has been to use brute force to hold on to power. I think he committed an act of war by invading Ukraine. And I think much of his aggressiveness has been caused by Obama's weakness. I think weakness is provocative, and what we've seen across the globe is that our enemies, from Russia to Iran to North Korea, have all gotten more aggressive, more belligerent because of what they see as weakness in President Obama. I am very encouraged that that's going to change, and change significantly on January 20th.
That's President Obama, but has President Putin committed war crimes?
Look, he has committed acts of war. So, a war crime is a technical matter that you adjudicate under the laws of war, but he's a thug and he's committed acts of war. I'm not at all hesitant to say so, and then we need to stand up to him and resist. And it's clear he's also committed repeated efforts to undermine America. I mean, there's no doubt that we've seen cyber attacks from Russia. We're going to continue to see them. We're going to continue to see them from China, from North Korea, and we need a president and administration that recognizes those who are expressing hostility to America. We need a president who can stand up to that.
So, Senator Graham,
if he had given that answer, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I know.
Senator Graham, let me ask you the reason
So
the two
Ted
of you
for
are...
Secretary of State.
Yeah,
All right, you got a new nominee.
You've been a big
Oh, my
supporter
God.
all along.
Exactly, you've been there all along.
All along.
Senator Graham, let me ask you, the reason the two of you are standing there today is that you've introduced a new bill that would effectively defund UN because of that Israel resolution from which the United States abstained. Explain what you're seeking to do here together.
22% of the money to fund the UN comes from the American taxpayer. I don't think it's a good investment for the American taxpayer to give money to an organization that condemns the only democracy in the Mideast, takes the settlement issue and say that's the most important and only issue in terms of impediment to peace. I begged the UN months before, don't put me in this box. This was John Kerry and Obama taking a slap at Israel, and we're going to push back. I think most Americans believe that the United Nations has become more anti-Semitic, more anti-Israeli, and I'm a big internationalist, but we're going to stop the money until we get this fixed. And I appreciate Ted's leadership on this.
Senator Cruz?
Well, listen, the last month, what we've seen Barack Obama do to Israel, I think has been shameful. It's been on the way out. He has struck out repeatedly at Israel and done real damage. At the United Nations, the resolution that the Obama administration abstained from, and there are reports they actively orchestrated, was a profoundly anti-Israel resolution. It declares much of Israel illegal and illegitimate. Much of Jerusalem, it declares, is not legitimately part of Israel. It declares the Jewish quarter is not part of Israel. It says the Temple Mount, the holiest site for the Jewish people in Jerusalem, is not legitimately part of Israel.
Wall.
And the Western Wall, I mean, we all remember the image of Barack Obama wearing a yarmulke, standing in front of the Western Wall. He's now signed on to the proposition that that is illegal occupied territory. That is shameful. And in my view, we need to act to defend not only our friend and ally, the nation of Israel, but also U.S. interest. And so Lindsey and I today are joining and filing legislation that would end all U.S. taxpayer funding for the UN unless and until they reverse this resolution. It's very simple. The only way to get their attention, we can give speeches, we can pass resolutions, and the UN is going to ignore what we have to say. But if you cut off their money, that gets their attention. Yeah. And I think we've got real prospects of seeing this thing move through Congress and actually turning this thing around.
Senator Graham, I want to go back. It's John Heilman here. I want to go back to a different topic and a different piece of legislation. The topic is Russia, and the legislation is your bipartisan bill with Senator McCain to both strengthen, solidify, and broaden the sanctions that the Obama administration is placing on Russia because of the hacks last year. Do you think, on the basis of what you've heard right now from the president-elect and from his Secretary of State designee, that they are anywhere close to where you are with respect to what has to happen now to Russia?
Well, number one, I realize I got 1%, so we can let that go. Here's what I think. I think there's a bipartisan desire to punish Russia, not only for hacking into our elections, even though I don't believe they changed the outcome. They tried to disrupt our elections, and they're doing it all over the world. The president-elect said he believed Russia was behind the hacking. That is progress. Tillerson indicates that sanctions are a tool that can be used tool in the toolbox that can be used. So I hope that Tillerson will embrace sanctions if they're passed by the Congress. I predict if we had a vote on more sanctions against Russia today, it'd get 80 votes in the Senate.
And so are you comfortable, is Senator John McCain comfortable with the fact that Rex Tillerson will support a sanctions bill if it passes through the Senate?
He indicated that sanctions were justified for the invasion of the Ukraine. He said he wants to look at additional sanctions before he commits. I am confident that if we could get 70 or 80 votes in the Senate, that the Trump administration will embrace sanctions, because look at it this way. If we give them a pass, you're going to get more of this. Iran and China are watching us. Now's not the time to give Russia a pass on trying to interfere with our election. More sanctions are necessary and justified for a variety of reasons, and I hope the president-elect will come to realize that the only way you're going to have a better relationship with Russia is when they stop invading their neighbors, when Putin stops killing his opposition, stealing his people blind, and trying to interfere with democracy. Nothing better is going to happen until he feels the pain of what he's doing.
Senator Cruz, what advice, if any, would you have for the president-elect about this simmering feud between the president-elect and the intelligence community?
Well, listen, like Lindsey, he and I both ran. Neither of us won. Donald Trump won, so I don't know that I'm in the advice-giving business. But, you know, there will be a natural transition of power that occurs on January 20th. The president-elect has appointed his own leadership to lead the intelligence community. You know, I will say one of my real concerns over the last 8 years has been the politicization of the intelligence community, in particular the political leadership of it under Barack Obama. I'm glad to see that change. And we all know there are many good, principled, courageous professionals in the intelligence community who are risking their lives, covert agents who are putting everything on the line for this country. And I know they are every bit as dismayed as I am about seeing the intelligence community politicized and treated as just another political arm of the White House. I hope and believe that's going to change in the new administration. I think that'll go a long way to resolving these issues.
Senators Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, thank you both for being on our show together. I'm glad you worked out that
Let's see a hug.
murder thing.
We'll be in Reno and
Yeah, exactly.
and Vegas.
We're performing all week.
It was great to have you
We'll buy the
both on.
tickets.
It's
Yeah.
all
Thank you,
seriousness.
guys.
Thank you
Really
very much.
appreciate it.
We'll be tracking your legislation to defund the UN over the vote on Israel.